Have you ever woken up at night, unable to move, seeing figures move around? Did you feel the weight of extreme dread crush you? Do you know someone else that's happened to? Do you even know that is called sleep paralysis? If you have it, you're not alone. Over 3 million people in the U.S. alone report having sleep paralysis, including 70% of combat veterans. If you're curious about sleep paralysis, I, Matt Bechtel, have written a fictional book titled Sleep, which is available on Amazon. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Book Brilliant podcast. It is your host, Matt, and today I have on author Clay Martin. Clay has written 5 books. We predominantly speak today about his latest one, Wrath of the Windigo, a little bit about Clay. He was on episode 14 of the Book Brilliant podcast. I recommend you check that out if you are completely not familiar with him. If you are and you haven't read his latest book, I highly recommend it. It's a great book. Today, I will say we did have some technical difficulties in the form of an audio quality problem. So if you are familiar with Clay, I think you're really going to like the episode. He goes into some details about his life that he has not spoken about before publicly, which is always exciting. But again, if you're not familiar with him, I recommend you check out episode 14 and then maybe come back to this one. Either way, I recommend his books to anybody. So let's get into it.
Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to the Book Brilliant podcast. We have on, again, one of my favorite, if not my favorite guest, Clay Martin. Clay is the author of a stack of books, which I have all of them. We've got, what came first? What did you write first? Last Son of the War God or Sword of the Caliphate?
Last Son of the War God was first. That was like 5 years ago.
Boom. So we got that one. Then we got Sword of the Caliphate. Then things took a change in this country, and Clay thought it was appropriate to write some guidebooks to how to survive the coming Civil War, starting with Concrete Jungle and then Prairie Fire. Now, I read Prairie Fire, and I kept this for a while, and then I decided to check out Concrete Jungle. I just didn't think it was relevant to me since I live not in a big city, and there's still a lot of good stuff in here, so read both of these. But we got Clay on today because you've got one of the wildest books I've ever read, Wrath of the Windigo. So we're going to get into all of this, Clay. But first, your background in the military, I had you explain it last time you're on. My understanding is you were in for about 20 years and you were a cook, right? You were just...
Right. Yeah.
You warmed up chicken fried steaks. Yeah.
Basically,
you got a very impressive background. Do you want to, I like to do introductions for my guests, but just for the sake of not messing it up, could you give us a quick recap of what you did for 20 years?
So I did some really weird stuff. I was basically a glutton for punishment. So I started my career in the Marine Corps as an infantryman. Then went up to become a reconnaissance Marine, which is the Marine Corps was their special operations component back in the day. Scout Sniper and Mother Corps. Then around 2003, my GT score went up. That's an IQ military guy specifically. So I crossed the Army, immediately to Special Forces. I was a communications sergeant and a special intelligence sergeant in direct action unit where I served as a sniper.
There we go. That's awesome. Yeah, man. Well, I want to roll into it, and I want to spend some time talking about Wrath of the Windigo. With what you can even say on record. Just kidding. But first, I want to talk about something I haven't heard you talk about yet, which is how the hell a guy like you enters this creative fear and starts writing books, right? So first, I want to say this is like a really, really important question to me, and I've kind of talked to you about it before, but not as in-depth as I'd like. And I feel like there's probably a lot of people who are thinking this subconsciously or consciously, what I'm about to ask. Dude, there's so much shit going on in the world right now. Whenever I go, I also wrote a book, Sleep. I should have it right next to me, but I don't. I also wrote a book, right? And I've got other books I'm going to write in the future. That takes time. Sometimes when I'm sitting there and I'm getting ready to write, it's like, dude, should I even be doing a creative endeavor right now? Or am I about to get drafted into World War III? Like, is like a civil war about to break off? Like, should I just be like cleaning my guns? Like, there's probably so many people who are in this in between where they're like, I kind of want to. It's hard to have big dreams when it sounds like the world's about to collapse. So, how do you balance that? What do you think about that?
This process, like a couple of, I've actually been through this a couple of written.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, it's very weird, especially like the wide variety of stuff I've written, especially when you're writing fiction and the world's changing, so then you can type. It's it's actually yeah, but I kind of too, like sometimes you just gotta out, and sometimes events have changed, especially if you're writing fiction. You just gotta kind of force your way through it, because people are still gonna know the world was like, unless it's a world changing affair. Throws a nuke in New York City tomorrow. Well, I'm probably not gonna write about the bodega in New York. Aside from like actual changing stuff like that, I feel like you just gotta come with it. And that was a big problem in Windigo, the last one. I felt pressure like I've never felt to hurry up and finish the process, because I kind of like feel and see things coming that would make it so that maybe I couldn't even publish this book.
Yeah, it makes sense, because especially if you've read the book, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, things have been very scary, and honestly, I'm going to say too that I felt that pressure with Concrete Jungle as well.
Yeah,
Concrete Jungle mostly written like 75% written before the riots started in 2020. Well, there was this like impetus to finish that, which I did. I finished it 4 days, the last 25%, and get it out there because people needed that stuff. And then basically the smoke cleared on that. Like a month later, I'm looking at the elections for 2020. I'm like, oh my God, this is what's going to happen. It's like a huge pressure to hurry up and get that done. So I'm also going to say that it probably out of it like depends on like your writing. Some people write slower, some people write faster, and there's a lot of weird stuff that goes into that give take as far as like putting up with relevancy.
Yeah, dude. My next book that I'm going to write is going to take place in a prison, and so I'm going to go actually visit the state, like the really tough one in Nebraska, that state prison. I'm going to go visit them next spring. So I feel like your answer, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, but it basically is like, if you've got dreams, if you've got art that you want to make, still pursue it and still do it, but also keep your eyes open and be vigilant and stay physically fit and sharp on your skills, just in case things get bad. Was that a good answer?
Yeah, man, that's a perfect. And part of the reason that is like, these artists' dreams, like you gotta see those through. And I think this is one of the biggest things where people fall in the writing aspect of things. Anyway, they won't see it through. The hardest thing about writing a book is starting the damn thing, to be honest with you. Yeah. Like starting with paper and like get it done. So I feel like a lot of people end up with like excuses not to finish too. You can't let that happen, man. Like you want this, you just got to go get it.
Yeah, man. I'm on my phone too much, and a lot of it, dude, is like I'm checking Twitter because like base GWAT Twitter is the funnest place in the world right now. But dude, there's like this part of me where I'm like, I don't want to delete Twitter because I want to stay informed. But then I'm like, I mean, dude, people are dramatic and you never know. And you're going to, how you see the world, with what your experience is how you're going to see the world. So like people who are veterans, I feel like are going to, well, obviously they're going to see it different than people who are non-veterans. And then, someone like me who's friends with a lot of veterans, I kind of understand where they're coming from. So I like paying attention, but like one of my brothers, he doesn't pay attention to the news at all and is like happy as can be. And I'm like, well, what's worse? Because I don't want to not know what's going on, but also I don't want to like live every moment like, oh, I need to know this because something's about to happen. And then 30 years from now, nothing's happened. And it's like, crap, that I just like waste waste time on that. Do you go through that too, or how do you feel?
Dude, I do think I've actually solved this one. Is really after Pray for I was written. So we went into January 2021. Then it got weird, right? Crazy shit happening. Yeah. For that month, that period of like, let's say, October 31st through like February 1st, I was a news junkie, like all day, every day, pursuing all these like weird lines of conspiracy nonsense or what's going to happen next. And then a very important thing happened. I realized that nothing was going to change. There was going to be no big event.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just, this is what it is. This has happened, and now this is what it is. Nobody's going to jail. Nobody's going to turn off the this crap. So I made a conscious decision to stop caring about this. Now, the balance of that is like I don't flat-footed either. So I very much live. I'll spend about 30 minutes every morning looking at the news. This is the big thing that I changed here. That opened my mind to the concept that most news is bullshit. It's mostly propaganda. It's mostly narrative-driven porn. And the war in Ukraine actually is like really consolidated my decision to go this way. So let's forward through that. So I've been around to I've kind of started on the news. I don't even do as much as I used to, and that's given me a lot more time to like focus on my family or focus on my personal get ready for this. Because basically the conclusion I came to is like things are gonna get really bad, and knowing it's gonna get really bad or exactly what flavor doesn't matter. Like I'm probably the same way anyway, so it doesn't matter. So we started in the build up to the Ukraine war. So all intelligence guys are like coming out of the wood, like help them host shows or like group think tanks and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so I kind of like quarter ass got involved with these things, but I wasn't really participating. Where it really came to me that I had made the right decision and I should step away from this. Do you remember very early in the Ukraine war, we started using like video game footage? We had like the Snake Island, all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
It was all bullshit. The minute that those stories started getting disproven, shown to be like complete bullshit, I just completely turned it. I don't know where anybody's in Ukraine because I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And I really feel like that has helped my mental health like immensely too. Like, stop following the fear porn. Stop, really paying attention to this shit. It doesn't matter. You still do the work to do to get yourself ready, and you spend that other time A, not being afraid or being stressed about it, and B, you have more time to do stuff that matters, like make art, which matters more to me than if they blew up a bridge or not.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll say this, the Ukraine war is insane how they have chosen to put out so much propaganda instead of talking about what's going on the day to day. And I feel like they're saying it like we have to do this because we're trying to, it's maybe it sounds crazy, but like we're not getting the accurate facts. And I feel like they're purposely choosing to do this because to them, it's more important to build up, the people fighting in Ukraine. And I understand, dude, their country's being invaded, but it's insane to me that a massive war, and I'll say massive because it's Russia involved, it's a massive war going on. And you can't even figure out what the hell the facts of it are. And the beginning of it, especially that's kind of why with news, I have chosen to, with those big stuff, I say, I'm just going to wait for the book to come out. And on massive stories, I'll wait a couple years and then I'll read the book about it, because there's always a book about anything major that happens, but you just have to kind of like disconnect from it. But at the same time, I want to be informed enough to know that when Putin says, I'm not bluffing, I'm gonna use nukes, it's like, okay, that's a good thing to keep in mind.
Well, there you go. No, dude, that's an exact perfect example of the balance point of I'm not following all this bullshit, but also knowing what's going on. I bet you right now, probably like 80% of Americans know that he said that.
Yeah.
Nor do they realize that we are on like, I mean, this sounds like some tinfoil hat stuff, but it's what I really believe. I think we're on the brink of nuclear war for the first time since like 1989.
Dude, Biden said that. You don't even have to think that. Biden's the one who said that.
I seriously think that at what level nukes will fly in, and then they'll be contained to that theater before next. Like I think that's going to happen.
Before when? Next when? When did you say?
Spring. Certainly, like thought. Yeah, I think it's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, it sounded crazy a year ago. It really sounded crazy 3 years ago. But I want to know that. That tells me like, okay, seriously do some stuff like get a better wood elf and probably lay in a little bit of fertilizer for the garden. Think what do I have that comes from Europe? That is how it directly affects me. And then hope it doesn't escalate because it could. I don't think it will, but it could.
Yeah, dude. Again, that's kind of like, again, that balance point of staying informed, because there are so many people that didn't expect when Russia invaded Ukraine. It's like they didn't see it coming. And it's like, dude, this was, if you were paying attention, there was a month long of shit going on there, But yeah, man. So, you said this would have been a good transition 2 minutes ago, but I still had stuff to recap on it. But you had made the comment about how important art is to you in doing that. So I want to kind of talk to you about some stuff you haven't talked about. For one, you kind of got your own audience, and I'm really curious as to how the hell you built it. And maybe first question is like, how did you get into writing in the first place? Because you kind of were like, I don't know if I'd say like a journalist guy, but you did like gun reviews and stuff like that first, right?
Right. Well, here's the question you're not asking. Okay, I'll ask it for you. I'm serious. Courtesy thing. A lot of people assume that like dudes gunfighters, especially, are like basically knuckle dragging retards. And I'm not saying that you're saying that, but I'm saying that is a common stereotype. Even like if you ask the average American, like about like an infantry marine, like they assume they're like a criminal magnet, basically.
Yeah.
So it is shocking to a lot of people when people background step into a space like, especially where it's creative. Even writing like Tom Clancy from military fiction to fictions, it's really a step when you get the creative space like I did with Windigo. So it surprises a lot of people.
Yeah.
Part of that is this kind of the mind screw. You haven't been in those places. Believe it or not, even like infantry marines, which again, like I said, most American citizens assumes it's like an idiot. They have a higher intelligence requirement than like 95% of the jobs in the Marine Corps. It's higher than truck drivers, higher than like heavy equipment operators. Pretty much the only ones that have a higher intelligence requirement are like intelligence or aircraft mechanic. So it's a misconception that's very easy to get. And I've met, honestly, now they're rare. There's some dumbasses too. Don't get me. But I've met some extraordinarily brilliant people in that you don't expect to be there. They basically just showed up because they wanted to enter yourself. It's bizarre as hell. And then honestly, when you transition over to especially the Army's forces, the Green Berets, because we have a requirement to speak a language, and because we have this requirement to be able to like really integrate indigenous culture, they select for intelligence and emotional intelligence as well, way higher than any of the other like special operations dudes. Like I've met some SEALs that are like, they are a caveman. Like they'll drag on the ground and all they're really good for is carrying a machine gun. I've met some smart ones too, but I'm saying that you can get into the space just being that guy, just being tough. Reconnaissance Marines, same way. So it turns out that when we talk about creation of art, there probably are a fair number of guys from my exact background that stepped into that. Now, how did I specifically get into writing? Yeah, I did a lot of gun reviews and stuff. That was a profession for a while after I got out of the military. And honestly, that I decided to write novel was I sat down and I was like, how many reviews do I do in a month? And something like 10 at like 2,000 weeks. I'm like, I write a quarter of a novel every month. Usually about stuff that I consider kind of lowbrow. Like, this is an AR-15. It's black and it has a plastic grip on it. Like, how many times can you say that? Not that many. It's but basically it's not intellectually challenging because you're basically describing an object. It becomes intellectually challenging when you've done it 1,000 times because now you have to think of another way to say the same thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to write a novel and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's I appreciate you framing the question like that because that's actually not where I was going with it, but I suppose that some people could potentially be thinking that. But I guess I get that, like, dude, in my opinion, you have to be, not even in my opinion, I just know you have to be like really smart to be an operator, to be a good one. And I know that some turds can get through the class, right? But you have to be a smart guy to do that job. And so I've always assumed that the intelligence is there. I guess I've always thought, with someone like your skills, it's funny. Like, I would have never have guessed that so many like badass dudes are so funny, like on Twitter, like that their sense of humor like transitions so well online, and that they have like the ability to grow an audience. And it just kind of surprised me because I guess if I had that background, I don't know what I'd be doing. Maybe I'd just be training classes all day and not thinking. I don't know. I just was curious as to like kind of how you got your start there. So how do you if you were going to give give me some advice here. I'm a new author. I want to sell more copies of my book.
Right.
What would your recommendations to me be to grow an audience? Would it be to be funny on Twitter and mess around? Would it be to do a ton of podcast interviews, speaking engagements? I mean, what's your advice to people who want to grow their audience?
Let me back up one step. I'm going to segue back to this, but this is important for the parts that you just said.
Okay.
Here's the thing that'll crack you up that most people don't really get either. Most of the guys I've ever met, like 99% of the guys that are real operator Steves, done some badass shit, are hilarious. The shit that happens in combat is nothing like you see in Hollywood, and is more often like almost some thrill level stuff with some like precision badass stuff too. But people are always making jokes. And I don't know why that is always been that way. It's like this gallows has pervaded the American operations forces at least. And it'd be like taking RPG fire, helicopters are coming in, and somebody would be like, get to the chopper. And it's the personality. So it's really funny, actually, in the tactical space, you see all these dudes that like never did anything, but they play like, Captain Hard-Ass, like space killer dude, when I've never met anybody that acts like it. like not one person. And especially you get us together, then it's even worse. And so kind of counts for that too. Cause like there's something that I know in real life, but we'll start bullshitting about things that we might only say to each other like normally, but we'll start doing it, and that shit is hilarious. And that kind of has like an audience. But at the same time you said I had to be Matt Best either. That dude is legitimately. He's been a stand-up comedian. And I know another Green Beret stand-up comedian first, which is pretty funny too. But my point is like I never really stepped into be like just guy, but it does kind of just come out. So I think the biggest thing for like growing an audience is be yourself. Don't be a character. And it just kind of naturally grows. It's funny. I think I just like 15,000 It's after I got nuked in January of 21.
Yeah.
So that's grown, pretty fast. There's another cat you might want to check out. His name is Dale Stark, and his hashtag, I just said to somebody yesterday, is at Dale Stark A10. He's an A10 pilot.
Dude, I told Dale to come on this podcast, and he said he was like legitimately. I've DM'd him before. I think he was following me on Twitter for a while too. But yeah, dude, I've engaged with Dale Stark. He's a funny dude.
Dude, he is. And here's the thing: he's got 1,000 followers. His account's like a year old. Because he's just him, man. He's legitimately like a badass because he's a pilot and he posts pictures of the airplanes. But mostly it's him like homing and hunting and kind of being a dork.
Yeah.
People love him. I follow him too. In fact, there's a cat named oh my god, my TBIs are acting up. Braxton McCoy. He's a veteran. He wrote a book also called Glass Factory.
I've got it, dude. I've got that.
Okay. Yeah, you should reach it. But same thing. He's got a huge audience because he basically just tweets about being a cowboy in Idaho and getting blown up. Some of these dudes that are really growing like the huge accounts. I think we've reached an age of authenticity. And so you had a while where like the grifters and the, say the most outrageous thing you can guys grew the most. I think we've turned a corner on that now to where now it's like the authentic dude. That's who people like. And we're seeing those like really take off. So I think that's a big piece of it. I mean, think of like I don't want to say it, but think about like who you are. Okay. You've written a book now, so you're in the author circle. You've got this podcast, which is awesome. You have amazing guests too that people don't know about.
Yeah, thank you.
Some of the dudes you have on, I'm like, even with the first time I came in the cast, I don't even know if I could follow those dudes up because you have these larger than life and guys. I'm like, okay, this is a strange step for me, but you just kind of find the dude that you are, and just you gotta kind of have to be aggressive on your social media stuff, which is contrary to what I said a little bit ago about ignore that shit. But I think just some like authentic posts and stuff, that's really what starts to grow you. And just take a little bit of time every morning. Like I got 30 minutes. I'm gonna homesteading in Nebraska and this tactical stuff, and ask questions and like that's it. And you'll see an explosion in your own.
That's really interesting, man. I appreciate it. I feel like I've picked up some followers just because the thing is, man, is like I always delete like all my tweets. Like I'm one of those guys who like I'll tweet for a while and then I'll delete them, right? And probably shouldn't have said that because now assholes are going to screenshot my tweets, get bent. But yeah, I've always struggled with that because like I also work in the professional world too, and I feel like a lot of people. Well, first of all, a lot of people are, but I know that intimidates like a lot of people from, saying, making jokes and things like that because we live in such a stupid like you can't make jokes anymore world.
Right.
So that's been like the struggle with me is it's like how far is too far, and is this. If somebody reads this tweet back to me next week, am I going to still think it's funny or am I just going to feel stupid? So like yeah, that's a good dude. Speaking, I didn't want to forget this part. So, soldiers have great senses of humor. So does like all law enforcement. Paramedics are some of the craziest dudes I've ever met in my life. Those guys party harder than anyone I've ever been around. But you're right. Like people should realize that our soldiers have always had great senses of humor. But dude, the one guy that really got me was you follow. I'm pretty sure you follow him. His name's like Crust Cheeky KRUS_CHIKI. You know who I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Dude, he had this tweet and he said he what? Did you say he wrote a book?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Surplus. Like he imports equipment. Yeah.
Dude, that tweet he made where he said that he jokingly posted rocket launchers for sale and was contacted by a rebel officer. in a small Nebraska or a small African nation. That made me laugh so hard. I sent that to my friends. We were all dying at that. Yeah, there's some gold there. Oh man.
Or let me rephrase that. I've had a lot of experience in a lot of different arenas with books in the limited time that I've been doing this. So it averages out that I've written a book here for the last 5 years. Actually, it was 2 in 1 year, then a year off, and now the new one. But in that time, I have self-published. That was last time the War God was self-published the first time.
Okay.
Had that book bought by a publishing company who also bought Sword of the Caliphate.
Okay.
And then went through that process. Got completely disgruntled by dealing with agents and traditional publishers. Self-published again, Cumberland Prairie Fire, and had Prairie Fire, Fennecker Max, who then advised me on Wrath and Windigo about how to do things with it. And so then I've also written fiction and nonfiction. So I've basically played in all these arenas. And this kind of like what I've figured out, and certainly I have a lock on this. I'm not getting Stephen King text in the mail, but I am doing all right.
Yeah.
So first of all right, the first one, when I self-published, all right, I didn't have a good social media game really. I was still young and learned how to do that stuff, but I still did okay on that one. So then my next step, another veteran got a hold of me and was like, hey, you should this is an awesome book. You should sell it to this agent, and you should sell it to a publisher.
Okay.
What I learned from dealing with a publishing agent is very few situations. Tucker back later when I was talking to him about it. Now as a veteran of this, there are very times where a traditional publisher is going to be the right answer for you, unless you're doing thing. Or you're this or some kind of shit like that, to where they're going to give you like a $500,000 advance. It's not worth it at all. And the reason for that is, a lot of new authors don't know. When you get an advance, you don't have to pay that back. If you get a $500,000 advance and your book sells 10 copies, keep $500,000. If you don't get an advance, well, now you're playing a game that really sucks. So, I was just reading the other day some staggering figure, like maybe 7 new books that are published sell less than copies.
Yeah,
it's a lot, right?
That's true.
Like 1,000 copies. So basically, how it works out is you've got these giants, these titans of the indie, like Stephen King. Brad Thor, who's writing, actually not even, I'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, dudes, Lee Child. So basically, these dudes are getting like $100 million checks every year. Like that's it. Stephen King is getting $100 million with his book. That's how this shit works. Well, his newest book, or take a guy 2 steps down from that, may or probably not going to make $100 million. They're getting that money for him, which the publishing house is still going to make their coin off of printing fees and all other. So anyway, as my self-published, I still make between $1,000 and $3,000 a month off those on royalties. At the same time, I still get a royalty check for my 2 books that are owned by a pub company, and I usually get $100 to $150 every quarter. So you tell me which one makes more sense.
So just so I got that right, on your self-published, you can make $2,000 to $3,000 a month on that, but the books that you had through a publisher, you're getting $150 a quarter.
Yep.
Dude, okay, right there. So when I had my book come out, people were like asking me, "Are you published, self-published?" And people don't understand it, and it's like, look. The book that I wrote was too secular for Christian audiences and too Christian for a secular audience. And gotcha. I wrote the book that I wanted to write the book on. I edited it. I did more editing on that than I probably spent actually writing it. So it's palatable. There shouldn't be any grammar mistakes, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't want to have an editor tell me what to adjust and what not to.
Right.
I just didn't want to deal with it. And Amazon makes it so much easier that the money I make like a few bucks a book, right? So if you buy my book for $12.99 on Amazon, after you buy Clay's, I make less than $5, let's say, on that book, right? I don't make $12.99 on the book,
right.
or whatever, right? But dude, if I were to go through a publisher, I would make what, 15 cents a book? I mean, it would be like, so it doesn't seem like a lot, but it does like stack up. Like I've sold I had heard that quote too, where it said like 90% of books sell less than 12 copies, and I've sold less than 12. My goal is to hit the 2,000, which very, very few books get to. But, we're talking about fiction here. There was a biography, and I still want to write it, about somebody that had passed away, a musician that passed away, that I wanted to write. And I was kind of like, well, this kind of sucks, because if I want to go do it, like I'm going to have to travel and do all of that stuff like out of my pocket. And, the days of going to a publisher and selling the idea and then getting like this big ass like check up front as like a new writer is probably just not going to happen. And I don't even know if that ever was a thing, but those days are definitely gone now.
Oh, dude, I agreed 100%. There are a couple of pet projects that I want to do as well. Yeah, I would actually like to write a couple of books about Third Special Forces group, not even about the place. Require me to go travel and talk to a bunch of dudes that I served with, like person. Because there are certain things that you're not going to get over the phone. But yes, same thing. I'm probably even if I do it cheap, like 50 grand worth of travel. So it's going to be a pet project, and it's going to be after, that I can afford to pay it. And it may read and it may not. I mean, maybe I'll just give all money to the Green Beret Foundation. No, but I think that you did the right thing there, because also I learned along the way. My first book, even though you might think it less of God, I toned it down a little bit because I wanted that book to be palatable to a normie audience. Because it was in fiction, I shouldn't have even bought. I should have just gone for it, because it would have sold just as many or maybe more. But it would have been a more pure ass story that I wanted to tell.
Yeah.
The next one was a little bit better at, but I was still kind of like listening to those voices out there that are like, oh, you got to be, you got to be politically correct, or you be like kind of like politically sort of neutral. And once I abandoned that concept and just started writing, started doing like 100 times better.
Yeah, that's a good transition to kind of talking about like Wrath of the Windigo, man, because there was no like that was not watered down at all. At least I don't think it was. If it was, then hot damn. So with Wrath of the Windigo, man, what is this book? Is this a warning? Is it? I feel like it's part 3 to Prairie Fire and Concrete Jungle. I feel like it's part 3. What? How much of, dude, I don't even know where to go with this. Like, just take the platform and talk about it how you want to talk about, because I'm afraid that like if I ask certain questions, like we're gonna get rated. So I don't know, dude. What do you just tell me what your whole thing is with Wrath of the Windigo? I don't even know what to ask, man.
Okay, man. So this one is absolutely nuts. Let's get out of the way first. Two is kind of a third piece. It kind of is. Prairie Fire and Concrete Jungle, I saw those as like tactical books. And what I mean by this, like that you like what gear to buy, how to do some like base organization of like you and like 10 of your friends, so like you don't die. But those are considered, like we're talking about like war fighting skills. Those are considered like low level skills. Actually, that's like that would be called a common soldier's, actually. Like everybody knows how to do that shit. But I had to get those out of the way because most of the people that I'm talking to are not soldiers. They had to do that. Windigo is in many ways level guidance. Now we're stepping up to a higher level of okay. Well, now you do that stuff. Now you need to watch out for. Here's what's in the broad spectrum of this.
Yeah.
So that's one way of looking at it. The second thing, and you asked the question that you wanted to add, but I'll carry this one for you too. Almost everybody that's read the book has asked me, is this really like divinely inspired? And as weird as to be, but yeah, It was, man. That introduction was not bullshit. That's went. And there were a lot of weird things how this story came to me, but that's really how I feel about this one. When I didn't even write this book. I typed it. It was somebody else's book. Yeah. And it is, I think, a warning. Like I fortunately think that's a lot of how things go. That's a dire situation to be in, but I mean that's what I feel like is happening and is going to happen.
All right, I'm definitely going to start asking you questions that I didn't feel like I should ask you on camera. It's nothing that's going to get you arrested, but I'm going to just read a portion from the author's note here. So you said, I have always had a distant connection with the spirit world, like seeing through a dense fog. I was aware things floated in there, but they were shadows at best. If I focused hard, they would evaporate back into ether. Messages might come through, but they were highly opaque, more like a fortune cookie or a proverb than directions. So the main character in this book, or one of the main characters, I guess, who's talked about, he's got kind of this weird, like, well, I mean, I'm saying weird, but I'm a pure, what would you call it? Maybe Orthodox Baptist type Christian, I guess you could say. So he's got this like mixture of Christian beliefs with what I guess I would call like pagan, almost like Viking type beliefs or whatever. Is that how you align yourself? I didn't really want to ask this like on camera. You can say no comment, but how do you kind of align?
Totally fair, man. Totally fair. This is something I've not been very, very forthcoming. I don't know if I've ever said this on any podcast or any interview. I was raised atheist until I was about 11. Then my parents converted to Jehovah's Witnesses, which is a fun cult. And then they communicated me when I joined the Corps.
So you're excommunicated from the Jehovah's Witnesses?
The technical term is disfellowship, but yes,
Dude, our friendship has just grown because, dude, for real, I got a family member who that happened to. We'll have to talk about that one later. But dude, man, that's really interesting. So, let me just think for a second. Yeah, dude. I get it completely. I learned a lot about the Jehovah's Witnesses through my family member. And I'll say this, they do a lot of things that I like in the sense that they know what they believe, right? Like
that is true.
They know what they believe. Their kids know what they believe, and they have no problem basically standing up for that, right?
Right. Which is respectable.
Which is completely respectable. The problem is when you have like a kind of, I'm going to call it a cult, and I know that that's offensive to people who are Jehovah's Witnesses, but when you have these Christian like cults, it completely just makes Christianity unpalatable.
It just everything.
And the problem is, and one of the things that I really liked about Wrath of the Windigo was that you actually talk about some issues with Christianity that are true. We have we're descendants of badass dudes, and we've gotten really soft. And like you one of the things, I can't remember if I highlighted it or not, but I definitely did, where you talk about how they have allowed people to say, the end of the world's coming, and people have taken like the whole end of the world thing, the whole Left Behind series, all that crap. That's actually a newer belief to Christianity. People don't realize that.
Yes, it is.
So there are different ways that, there's different beliefs on how the world will end. I kind of tend towards what would be called post-millennialism, and which kind of like skews towards it's going to be more of a peaceful ending than everybody getting beamed up. But the problem with like the Left Behind stuff is exactly what you say in your book, dude, which is that people have just said the ship is sinking. I'm not going to polish brass on the Titanic.
Right.
That has become a massive problem. Why are all of the hospitals in this country usually have some sort of a Christian name? Because the church used to be a part of that. And when I talk about how the government needs to massively back off on stuff, people say, well, those people need help. Who's going to help them? And I say, the church, dude. It's the church. The church is supposed to be the one feeding the poor. They're supposed to be the ones feeding the sick. Government screws up everything, which is why the church has to be in there. And the church has backed off. And I feel like it's because Christians, I have all these old guys that'll tell me in a Bible study, like, I have no doubt in my life that I'm going to see, the rapture. And I say, dude, I'm less than half your age. I'm less than half your age, and I don't believe that. I just don't. There's a book called The Day and the Hour. I actually got it by me. I'm going to grab it. People should check out the book The Day and the Hour by Francis Gunnerlock. It's every single end times prediction that's happened since Jesus left the earth.
No way.
Oh, dude, I'm going to send you a picture of this book. It starts off in, like I said, like literally when Jesus left. I've got it. I'm looking at it right now. So the first year it starts is year 41. The Roman Emperor Caligula reigned from AD 31 to 70, from 37 to 41. Attempted to place his image in the holy sanctuary at Jerusalem. Because of this act, many believed he was the Antichrist. Year 50, in AD 50, an unnamed person named Thessalonica in Greece prophesied in the letter. Dude, it's how many pages is this book? This book is like over 300 pages with a 100-page like bibliography or whatever. I don't know if it's quite 100 pages, but it's a 50-page bibliography, maybe we'll say. But yeah, dude, it's every end times prophecy that the church had wrong from up until like 2000, like after 2000. It goes all the way to and then it goes into the future, because in 2022, or let's see, James T. Harmon predicted that the rapture will happen in the year 2012 or 2022. I like that he put two dates just in case he was wrong.
That's cool. That's good bracketing. It's good
bracketing. So this guy, and it was written by a Christian, right? This wasn't written by a guy to shit on Christianity. He was just trying to explain that, like, the Bible says that. What does the Bible actually say? This is how I look at the Bible, dude. When God wants us to understand something, he says it multiple times in the Bible. When he's not as concerned with us understanding, he doesn't go into as much detail, which is why I don't think he's so concerned with us knowing exactly what heaven's like or exactly what hell's like. But I don't feel as if he's really laid out how the world's going to end, because I think that he says, and I forget the verse, but where it says just be ready at all times, it's just that you should be living a life every day. If you're a Christian, you should be living a life every day that if Jesus comes back today or tomorrow, it doesn't matter, because you've been in step with what your beliefs are, right? So I actually super appreciated you pointing that out in the book. So I commend you for that.
Well, thanks, man. I feel like that was those were important things to say. And it maybe had to come from somebody outside and be taken seriously. Because it's a super problem. I'm obviously well versed in theology too. So no one knows the day nor the hour. That means that you don't fucking know.
Correct.
That's it. In the story, but that has allowed a lot of softness. It really has, and the point about the church.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that priests used to be hard asses, man. Like there was a check on do you need chair, you need to get your ass to work, because those dudes were, they were tough dudes.
So it reminds me of like John Wimber when he became a Christian. He read the Bible and he was like, "Oh, dude, the New Testament, like this is awesome." He read the book of Acts, and so he said he went to church. And he was all excited because he thought, I thought that what we would do was like we would meet up, say some prayers, and then divide up the town and then go talk to people about Jesus. So he says he sits through the sermon and the sermon's over and he comes up to the pastor afterwards and he's like, "Hey, when are we going to do this stuff?" And the pastor's like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, the stuff in the book, like in the book of Acts. And he said, the pastor's like, "Oh, well, we believe it happened, and we sing about that it happened, and we talk about that it happened, but we don't actually do it. And Wimber was like, "Hey man, I gave up drugs for this." he said he said when I was in line, when I was on the devil's team, the devil let me do the devil's stuff, and he's like, "I'm on God's team now. I want to do God's stuff." And he started the Vineyard Church. Well, he didn't start it himself. He was with a team of people, but they started Vineyard eventually. Was a huge church movement. But I've always felt that way, dude. Is like, yeah, the church has gotten soft. And on a side note too, a lot of the prophecies and stuff in Revelations and things like that, there's actually a lot of that can be traced back to like Emperor Nero and some stuff that happened in Rome. Because some of the stuff that Jesus had said, he said this will happen by the end of your generation, and if those things didn't happen, that would make him a false prophet. But the thing about it is, those things actually did happen. You can read about it. There's a Josephus, I think, he writes about the Christians' flight to Pella. You can actually go back and look up some of this stuff, but people just haven't been taught that. There's a church I really like called Apologia Church. They're cool because those guys go out and they'll talk to Mormons in the street, atheists, Jehovah's Witnesses. They'll debate anybody, but they always talk about. That's where I learned about postmillennialism and how that wasn't necessarily, or how like this Left Behind whole thing hasn't really been like common Christian belief. So I thought that was kind of a cool part of the book. So. Yeah, man, that's definitely interesting about, I know you, and I know that you're not like a hyperbolic guy. So I assumed in that forward there that you were being serious. But I was like, geez, what an intense forward followed by a very intense book that honestly, like since I've read it, I think about it and it bothers me because it's like, dude, there's so much work that has to be done if we want to fix this country. It's not just going to be sending out tweets like a bunch of nerdy cucks because Tulsi Gabbard left the Democratic Party or whatever. I mean,
right,
dude.
Dude, I overwhelming message, and we've already started going down this path. Really, what I was trying to get to is it is a very, very swirled and influenced book. But what I was really trying to get to is I like there's so many. I mean, think about what's happening in this country. We're allegedly 8% Christian nation, right? Did you know that 70%? Yeah. And we're allowing all this bullshit to happen. Where we're at across the board. I don't care if you believe pagan stuff or Jewish stuff or you're Catholic or you're Protestant or whatever. We're in a spiritual conflict, and people have to realize that fuck themselves. And the biggest thing that I see, especially amongst the Christians, is somewhere along the way, they decided, of them, that the church would do all the work for them.
Yeah.
They don't think about their own responsibility and their own relationship with God, and the fact that there's beliefs on this, but a lot of Christians believe the difference between Catholics and Protestants is that Protestants say you, Matt, have a direct relation with God, independent of everybody else. The Catholic Church at special times very much said we're the intermediary. Like you pay us and we'll talk to God for you, but you better be here and you better pay your tax.
Yeah.
So we've actually kind of devolved back to the other way where people just assume that they've handed that responsibility over to the pastor and fuck it, whatever he says, and that's it. And that's not how things work.
Yeah, completely, dude. I was just talking to my family member about it the other day who had been through some Jehovah's Witness type stuff, and there's so much to be said. There's really not I go to a church that's pretty small, and I realized why, dude. My pastor from the pulpit literally said what he says it like all the time now. He's like, I hope that the church gets prosecuted so that way you guys start becoming serious about what you believe. And it's like, damn, dude. And so many people get like Christianity so wrong, and it's frustrating, and it's because people just haven't done their due diligence. I don't mean to talk bad about the church, because I heavily believe in the church. I've got a Bible study I'm going to tonight. But people don't understand, man, is like that church is, if you get plugged into a church and it's a biblical church, the ways that we support each other, like, dude, last week, people in our Bible study are talking about stuff in their backgrounds. And I was like, dude, I didn't know this person went through all this, like people in movies, they always paint the Christian guy as like a naive nerd, but a lot of people have been through some serious crap, and they've tried everything but God. And then they went to God as like a last resort, right? Like, dude, on a side note, that's not like relevant to this conversation kind of, but this guy in my Bible study, we were talking, and he's like a traveling nurse, and he's in his 50s or 60s, and he said, I've never been a nurse in a prison, but I was a nurse in a mental institution. And I was like, oh, where was that? And I'm thinking he was going to say Nebraska. He goes, Madison, Wisconsin. And I was like, oh, that's kind of by where like Jeffrey Dahmer was at, but I don't think Dahmer ended up in the institution. I think he was just in prison. And dude, this guy goes, yeah, but Ed Gein was in my institution.
Oh.
And I go, dude, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, you knew Ed Gein? And he's like, yeah, I worked with him for years. This is back in like the 70s. And I was like, what was that like? And I think he wanted to like change the subject, but it's like, dude, you just told me that you know Ed Gein. We're not talking about anything else. And I was like, dude, what was that like? And he said that he would always bring up like sewing, like making skin out of like, or making lampshades out of skin and stuff like that. He just said that you could tell he was always thinking about it and always talked about it. I just thought that was insane. So yeah, I mean, there's again, that whole thing, the trope of like the naive Christian, I just don't think is a fair thing necessarily, but
no, it's really not. And in a lot of ways, there are some though that are there's just people that haven't done this study, haven't looked at their own theology. They haven't, for that, or looked at the books and actually like read them. And well, I mean, that is a big problem. That's how people gain hold of you and make you believe whatever they want you to believe.
Yeah, dude, you're completely right, because like I would say like misguided, right? Because men are, I mean, dude, like you've got these guys who want to go do stuff, and instead we have them like, oh, you want to help out in the church? Okay, well, on Sundays after the sermon, we stack chairs.
Right.
It's like, dude, give us some danger. Send me someplace with a Bible and a gun, and let's just see what happens. No, it's like we want to go take me to the inner city and let me talk to somebody. Like we want to do like stuff, we want to do the stuff. And instead the church has just like put us in the corner and so like, okay, well, sometimes we need help stacking chairs or whatever. And it's because I don't know where that I guess I would call it like rot kind of started. Maybe it's just because we've been so comfortable as a country and as citizens, like we're just now finding out about all the bullshit the CIA has been doing for 40 years. So I feel like people just like they've just thought like, well, things are pretty safe and stable, so I guess all they need me to do is stack chairs. But as that cycle goes of, hard men create easy times create soft men, and soft men create hard times, that cycle I feel like is starting to turn.
Well, I hope so. So, man, I mean, I don't want hard times part, but if people don't turn and figure their shit out, like we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Like things are not good right now, and the possibility of them getting a whole lot worse is right there. I mean, we're already facing things that are. I mean, it sounds crazy to talk, even though it's happening right now. We're on the cusp of these famines. Europe's going to freeze winter, which is insane. They're first countries that are talking about their furniture right now. And it's not even cold yet. We're going through the fourth turning right. That's insane, and people don't. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, dude, I just watched a video of a guy in Europe take a lady's head and slam it into thing at a gas station, right? So Christian guys that are listening, what are you going to do? Are you going to turn your cheek? Because what happened when Jesus got slapped in the face? He didn't turn his cheek and say, give me another. He said, why'd you do that? You have to understand the culture that they were talking about it and the references and how Jesus said, go buy a sword. And I've heard Phil Vischer, who's about the softest Christian that you could possibly listen to now, the guy that create Veggie Tales, he's spouting off shit like, well, the reason why Jesus told his guys to get a sword was because he needed to get arrested. No, it wasn't. That's not why. He told them to get the sword because they were going to need the sword. That's why he told them to get the sword. So to talk again about Wrath of the Windigo, just maybe for the people who haven't read it, so they kind of understand. So this is kind of like about 30 years from now, we basically have a general from a Wendigo general who's kind of in the separatist from America. We've got this kind of post-America where there's still like Washington D.C. and stuff, but the country's kind of been torn up. And this guy is basically delivering a message to the rulers of the old America, and he's explaining. They're asking him, how did this happen? And he essentially gives a roadmap to what paved them there. So was this just in your writing and as you formulated it and it just felt like this story just poured out of you? Was this a roadmap or a warning or I don't know.
Now that's like the question I can't answer.
Of course.
Because, like I said, man, it's not my story. Dude, we'll honestly have to do another episode about all the weird shit than when I was trying not to record it. And when I decided to go ahead, and I better. But what it means, I know. I don't know if it's warning. I know it's partially that. It's also partially a roadmap for how it goes and how it gets done. And how that plays out. One of the things that a lot of people have told me that now that they've read it is, I hope you're watching back, because you're going to get the attention of some very, very dark people and forces that are very unhappy that this happened. And that was, if I'm being honest, that was one of the reasons that I ignored my responsibility for some time to write it. And that's not a small deal company. I'm a soldier, the highest, weirdest special operation shit that this country's ever produced, and no stranger to killing folks or getting shot at. It was still terrifying to publish button, and I thought about not hitting the publish button.
Yeah.
So there was some really weird shit with this one, and I don't know. And it's kind of both. It's warning. I do see something similar to this. This is how it found, and whether this is the thing. I think that we can lose something that a lot of people don't see, but I think there's a distinct possibility that we can lose. Children are enslaved, and it goes back to people think this is your time. Well, what if it's not? Basically, what if it's not, motherfucker? What if your children are now enslaved for 10 generations, or satanic communist clusterfuck because you didn't have the stomach accordingly?
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly it. That's like kind of the things that I would ask, my brothers, Christian brothers, is like, if you found out that the world was gonna go for another 500 years, would you act different? Would you act different if you knew that the stuff that's going on right now only got worse because you didn't do anything about it and you chose cowardice and you used the Bible to cover up your own cowardice? How do you think that's going to go when you talk to God? God's going to say, why didn't you? Oh, because I purposely misread the Bible, or I didn't read the Bible at all because I was scared to. Think about it. I mean, I don't even know. Dudes, I'll get you out of here soon, but, speaking of training stuff, I was kind of joking with you a couple months ago. I texted you because I went paintballing for like the first time. And not only was I gassed out, but we were at this part in the obstacle course. And dude, it was paintball, but I started like to not become aggressive and like advancing forward. and a dude that was like kind of he had played paintball like in the amateur circuit, and he would keep running up and get me because he like didn't have that fear. And it reminded me of that video of that cop in Dallas, because that maneuver that guy had where he like came around the pillar and shot that cop. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So that's basically like what was happening to me on the paintball field. So how do people get over that? And is that like part of like what training should be, is like learning how to not let that shit overtake you? I mean,
yes. Oh, fuck. Yes, that's part of training should be. I've seen it happen multiple times. I even wrote an article in for G4 magazine before they have a different name, but it was called A Fireman for Police. So basically, I've seen this happen now. Some dude with like literally like 2 weeks of military training. It was like, honestly, like a cook, admin guy, or some kind of like combat job. But he did that like 2 weeks of learning how to be a real soldier, right for basic training. Infantry tactics since World War II for us, and since World War I for the Germans, are based on a very simple sound concept called fire maneuver.
Yep.
That's what happened to the dart cops. As that dude will shoot and move and change angles. It's happened multiple times in LA. There's video, and they got done off for it. It's sad. It's really sad. It wouldn't have happened to a day one tree private. Actually, honestly, after Dallas went for like a month or two, I still had a training company back. I put out the call, was like, any police officer in the nation shows up, I'll train them for free for the period of time. And funny enough, the only people that took me up on that was the LA.
Really?
Yeah, really. Yeah. I didn't have a huge audience back then, but I did put the call out, and I did deliver on it. But yeah, there's basically a lot of stuff that we people have been learning in like classes and shit for 20 years is like battle-based concepts. It's valid, and it's very real if you're booting down doors and bad. That's not how an conflict will go.
Yeah.
Even the war in Ukraine is an entirely different fight than most of the GWAT was. So people need to change their training dynamic. It needs to be back to some basic like grunt stuff in the woods, fire maneuver type stuff. What will actually save your bacon.
Yeah, that's man, that's a good point. I was just listening to your interview with Tucker Max before you came on, because I didn't realize that I hadn't finished it yet. And he talks about obviously your books, but Kyle Lamb had a couple good books. It sounds like you recommend those.
Kyle's were great, because Kyle's also one of the guys that was early on that like Seek is like cool, sexy and shit. But that's not what a rifle was really built. And so you can easily say that everybody that teaches today, if they teach further back 25 yards, just Kyle.
Yeah, those books were Green Eyes and Black Rifles. Links for every book, including ours, will be on the on there. So make sure people buy Wrath of the Windigo, right? But also Stay in the Fight was there. Yes, was in there too. Clay, that's interesting, man. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about John Wick? And the most random question I've always wanted to ask: what are some of your favorite action movies? I want to know what you think about John Wick, and also, I've heard like multiple GWAT guys say that the gunfighting in Heat was some of the most realistic and badass. I'm wondering if you believe that too.
Okay, so on John Wick, man, I love the first one. Fantastic movie. I mean, they should have did a lot. I wish they had not made it, because the first one was so. The other, I think I watched the next. Now this is what sucks. I don't know, Reeves didn't get with Taron until after the first one. So the shooting in the first one is kind of like technique is, but it doesn't matter because the movie is great. Right? Yeah, it doesn't mean the slightest. Second to the gun shooting and handling stuff way better. So you watched Keanu Reeves, like he's like a method actor anyway, man. Like he's into this shit. Like he went and learned like real like Chinese kung fu for like a year before he did the Matrix. So he did all his shootings. The problem is first John Wick movie was like, like a $10 million, but after it was so successful, I got a real budget. Well, basically then they might, and that made it for like all this like bulletproof suits and shit. Like that to me, those movies, I just didn't like. It sucked. I thought after the first one, fantastic. Heat is still used. That like the bank robbing scene at the end. Like my entire military career, you'd still go somewhere to top that scene out and used it as an example of firemen for a good gunfighting.
Damn.
Because that movie actually advised by it may be Nat, who wrote a whole series of books, but it was advised by some SAS guy, knew his shit. So it's not like perfect because they still Hollywood things up a little bit, like close the distance like that. But it's very well done. And then actually another one that's really good. The last fight scene in Open Range is fantastic.
An Open Range?
Oh yeah, dude, that's like a classic example of both a little bit of fireman aggressiveness in a gunfight. Yeah, I mean it's different technology stuff, but it's great. That one's fantastic. Let me think for a second.
Dude, I borrowed that DVD from my parents like 6 months ago, and I've got it sitting on my table, and I haven't watched it yet, so I'm gonna have to watch it now.
Even if you don't watch the whole, just watch the last 20 minutes. It's awesome. I mean, the whole movie's pretty good, but the 20 minutes like magnificent.
Yeah.
Let me see. I feel some other like pretty decent stuff. Shit, man, those are kind of the ones that stick up to me.
Do you have like off the top of your head, could you list off like any of your favorite movie? Like I know a lot of people probably don't think about it, but I determined that my top 3 list is Tombstone is my favorite movie.
That's a good one.
And then second and third kind of shift between Silence of the Lambs and Fire Down Below with Steven Seagal. And I know the whole Steven Seagal haha thing, but dude, Fire Down Below is badass. Have you seen it?
Dude, Seagal made some good movies back in the day, man. Like, everybody likes him now for like the direct to DVD, but he made some action flicks, man. Let's be real. Let's be honest. And he was a good, as far as like even though I said like stone faced tough guys don't really exist, like still the Steven Seagal type of one is pretty cool. Like it is. Yeah. It's fucking legit. It's weird. I've had kids. I really haven't watched very many movies. I'm like 3/4 of the way through the man right now, which was good. I really want to see the ending on that one. But oh shit, man! I think like 3. Okay, Event Horizon. That's a terrifying fucking movie.
Say it again.
Event Horizon.
Event of the wait. Hold on. Say that again.
Event Horizon.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's that one about?
Oh, dude, it's the scariest fucking movie I've ever seen. Do yourself a favor. Don't look at any spoilers. Don't look at the description movie. Just watch it and be afraid for after that. Fucking amazing. That's how I watched it the first time. Actually, I was over at like a buddy's house. That came. Everyone was gone but me. And like laying on the couch trying to go to sleep, and I was flipping through channels, and this sci-fi movie came on. And holy fuck! So that's number 1. That's a winner right there. I gotta say, man, I really like Rambo 4. Like other 3 were not so great to have this one, but the 4th one, that was like Steven Seagal's apology to the Special Forces community, or excuse me, Sylvester Stallone apology to the Special Forces community. That was good. Yeah,
dude, I honestly absolutely love that movie too. Like I used to watch that stuff. I used to watch that movie all the time because that came out. I was in like 8th grade, I think, when that movie came out, dude, and I used to watch that all the time.
Oh, dude, that one's fucking legit. Yeah, that one's fucking that one's G money. And honestly, my third, a little bit weird, but it's one of my favorites. Kung Fu Hustle.
Dude, Kung Fu Hustle. I gotta look that one up real quick.
Dude, that one's killer. It's awesome.
Kung Fu Hustle. So your 3 are Event Horizon, Rambo 4, and then Kung Fu Hustle, huh?
Yeah.
Nice, dude. I'll have to look up. I haven't even heard of Event Horizon or Kung Fu Hustle. I got them both pulled up now. I'm gonna check them out, dude. That's awesome. I'm glad that I asked that. Well, Clay, we covered a lot of ground here, man, and this was a really, really fun podcast. I appreciate you doing it, and we'll definitely have you on again anytime that you're free.
All right. Well, if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. I know that the quality of the audio here was not the best, but we did what we could here. Again, check out Clay's book, Wrath of the Windigo. We take podcast notes and links serious here at Book Brilliant. So if you check out the description wherever you're listening, you're going to find the links to his Twitter. His handle is @wayofftheres. But his website, everything, links to his book, it's all going to be in the description. And if you go to bookbrilliant.com, you can find a link to all of the books referenced in this episode, including mine. For my own self-promotion, I'm just going to say, please check out my book called Sleep. It's a fictional book about sleep paralysis. I worked hard on it, and I hope you enjoy it. With that being said, again, thank you, Clay, for coming. We're going to do a part 2 very soon. Thank you, everyone, for listening.